In announcing the 88-year-old pontiff died from a stroke and irreversible heart failure. The Pope served until his very last day, appearing in public just yesterday to bless the thousands who gathered in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City on Easter Sunday. His passing follows the fourth major hospitalization of his papacy. The pontiff discharged in March after spending more than a month in the hospital, at some point in critical condition as he battled double pneumonia. The Vatican and
Good morning, Owasso. This is the Twins with Owasso Live, and this is the Morning Loop. Rest in peace, Pope Francis. Sad day for Catholics and a sad day for Christendom. However, we're going to give a actual critical analysis of Pope Francis, the man he was and the life he led. I have no doubt he was a good, devout man of God. And surprisingly, I actually agree with a lot of the stuff he said. You know, like I said, I'm Protestant, but we have to give an honest assessment of him and the absolute state of Catholicism right now. And to me, I will absolutely grant that Catholicism has been holding it down the best for years. You know, like they have the best stance on abortion, they have the best stance on marriage. And they have the best stance on a lot of issues in Christendom. However, I don't think Pope Francis was by far a good pope by any stretch of the mind. You know, I have, and to preface this, let me give you. So when I was in college, or just shortly after I graduated, I had a bunch of atheist, LGBTQ friends who were all like, oh, I hate Christianity, but I sure do like this Pope. And guys, that's always, whenever people who are atheists who openly, we're talking like people, whenever we played against Oral Roberts, all they would do is make fun of all the kids of Oral Roberts. You know, it's like, haha, you have, curfews, haha, you have to go to required church classes and stuff, haha. You know, like, when you have people like that, very vindictive atheist type people, and they're like, I really like the new Pope. He seems to be super pro LGBTQ and stuff. And you're just like, that sends red flags off to me. That tells me that if people who are not Christians are liking a Pope, the Pope must not be doing very Christian things. Or at least be slipping, be on that slippery slope fallacy that the left always loves to talk about. And I think Pope Francis represents that slippery slope. He came from a country that's, basically a communist country, pull up that meme of that Razor's Fist posted,
Sure thing.
You would
Give me
real
one
quick.
second here.
Yeah, well, if you could read that for me.
That's not the right one yet. Oh, wait, no, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
It says here from Razor Fist, I thought we were done cooperating with communists. President J.D. Vance meeting with Pope Francis on Easter Sunday.
I agree with that assessment. Razor Fist has a good take there. I think it's Winston Churchill said that, they only have communism in two places: in heaven, where they have it and don't need it, and in hell, where they have it and don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of thing. Pope Francis, but why don't you pull up that video that shows where he kind of backtracked on his LGBTQ stance or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So here, watch this video real quick, and I'll tell you, I actually agree with what he says here. But again, I think what he does, it's opening the gates for the slippery slope. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and play this.
Absolutely.
Last year, you decided to allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament. I cannot. The Lord made it that way. But to bless each person, yes. The blessing is for everyone. For everyone. To bless a homosexual type union, however, goes against the given right, against the law of the church. But to bless each person, Why not? The blessing is for all. Some people were scandalized by this, but why? Everyone. Everyone.
You have said, who am I to
Go ahead and
judge?
pause it. Yeah.
Homosexuality is not a crime.
No, it's a human fact.
See, and they ended it like that, of course, you know. But again, you know, that right there, that's your pope. That's the pope that everyone's lionizing now. And that's, you know, again speaking of that, I'm not speaking of that. The guy was obviously good, and I agree with what he said there. That blessing is for all. You know, it's like, again, we don't hate the sinner, we hate the sin. Totally agree with what he said there. But the problem with that is he's opening the gates. Like, I mean, like all of a sudden it's like you have a bunch of pro-LGBTQ people coming to the church, and eventually it turns into that slippery slope. And the Catholic Church is on that slippery slope. Make no mistake. You know, whenever you have bishops and cardinals, like, I mean, the people they're looking at as his successors, a lot of them are actually very pro-LGBTQ. Again, I have no problem with him blessing homosexuals and, you know, people who want to come up and receive that. But it's scary, man, right now. Like, I mean, Pietro, the guy who's like they're looking at to be the top runner for the next pope, he's very friendly to the LGBTQ community. You know, it's like, I mean, just get one instead of getting a more.
Raises me a question, like all my Catholic friends out there, is if the next pope does like come out and say that homosexuality is okay by the Catholic Church, do you stay a Catholic, listen to the pope, or are you going to garner the pope a heretic?
Yeah,
and, you know,
are we
back
going
away from the church?
Are you going to declare the pope a heretic? I mean, how many people would that happen to? How many Catholics would be like, that pope is a heretic? Or, I mean, but technically, the Pope's in charge. You're all heretics for not following what he says.
Yeah.
So this is what's very scary. You know, it's like, I mean, and there's a lot of evidence to show that the Catholic churches have been funding a lot of the mass migration. You know, it's like, again, they don't care about how migration affects every country. They're just trying to do what they feel is right in the eyes of the Lord, which, look, I get it. I get it. You know, it's like whenever you have people going, oh, please help us. We just want to get to America, you know, we just want to get to America, or we just want to get to Britain. But I mean, like, this is what I mean. If the Catholic Church was funding and facilitating a lot of these migrant caravans, especially the ones that have gone to the UK, the Catholic Church effectively helped facilitate the fall of the UK.
Yeah.
And again, I think a lot of Catholics are going to put on blinders to this. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, and then the other part too is like, this is the part that always kind of concerns me. Like, it's almost like celebrity worship. You know, I get that he's the holiest of the holies that can be on earth.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
and again,
but
to be fair,
scares me.
To be fair, I'll you know, it's like what a good friend of mine who I really respect, who's a Catholic, said. You know, it's the Catholic Church is bigger than one man.
Yeah.
But again, this is the guy. This is the guy that gets to interpret doctrine. This is the guy that gets to say whether or not you personally are a Catholic.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is one of the reasons why we kind of wanted to talk about the two big schisms in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I don't even know. We just don't have time to
I
go into that.
I don't even know. Yeah, I said, but there's, of course, we have the Great Schism, which was the big separation between the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after that was the Protestant Reformation, which was where Martin Luther saw a bunch of problems in the Catholic Church, especially when it came to indulgencies and like certain priests and bishops having families and marrying their kids into royalty.
Yeah, the West kind of bulldozed the Orthodox side a whole lot. Like, they just started making claims and bold assessments of what is and is not okay. They're like going, yeah, no, we're going to encourage our priests to remain celibate. And on the East, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, Peter was married.
Yeah. So, it's just kind of like what happens whenever you get some too much pride inside of these organizations, you know?
Yeah.
Too much, you know, it's like, I know what's best for everyone type thing. It's like, did you receive a revelation from God? You know, so again, that's what's scary, you know? It is, and again, I don't have all the answers. Don't look to me for all the answers. But what I'm saying is, you know, at what point, whenever the Catholic Church decides that LGBTQ is a thing and Islam's just as holy as Christianity, I mean, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
we are in trouble.
The next one that I have here is the article here that says, Pope says Trump is not a Christian. And this is in regards to him saying he's going to build a border wall and deport people.
Again, you know, this probably has a lot more to do with his upbringing, where he's from.
Because
he's from a crap hole country. I mean, he's from Argentina.
Yeah.
So people trying to escape and get out of poverty and not be eating, rations every day. That I get it, but at the same time, it's just like, look, it doesn't benefit the American people.
Yeah. Well, on this article, Donald Trump has a feud with other candidates, reporters, and TV networks during his run for president. Now, the frontrunner, the Republican Party nominee, is feuding with Pope Francis. Can't talk today. On Thursday, the pontiff criticized Trump for proposing at the heart of his campaign a pledge to keep people from crossing into the United States illegally by building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. I'd just say that the man is not a Christian if he said it in this way, Francis told reporters amid flight press conference trip to Mexico.
Again, and this is one of those things where, it's like what Christopher Hitchens famously said, do not trust these people. They will be the ones holding the gates open for the barbarians when they come to pillage your countries and your communities. Like, that's what the Pope's basically saying here. He's saying open the floodgates for the migrants and the masses.
And that's the thing is, like, I mean, I know a bunch of my Catholic friends here that were like all like, yeah, I didn't agree with that. That was a bad take by the Pope.
Again, not speaking ill of the dead. We're just pointing out the things that he said. I mean, like I said, if you think he was the best, now that he's gone and passed on, he's not the best Pope ever. It's like you look realistically assess the things he did and said. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not speaking ill of the man. I'm just telling you the things that he did throughout his career that I'm shaking my head at.
Yeah.
And again, the Vatican has a lot of walls. The Vatican, I mean, they don't let the homeless and the poor come into the Vatican and sleep and stay. They have walls that protect that. Let them come in there and defecate and sleep in the Vatican. Let people of different faiths come in there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But again, they don't do that. Practice what you preach. It's like that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's even looking back on it, like, if that was one of the things that Martin Luther had a problem with regarding the Catholic Church back in the day was they owned like 1/3 of the land.
Yeah,
in all of Europe.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
they expected, to be sent. Now, granted, you could argue, which I'm sure most Catholics would, and I'm sure that they did, that it went to the needy and the hungry and all that. But still, at the same time, it's like, the Catholic Church owned 1/3 of all the land in Europe at that time.
It's true.
Anyway, a person who thinks about building walls wherever they may be and not building bridges is not Christian, Francis said, according to the Associated Press translation of the conference. Trump wasted no time firing back. If and when the Vatican is attacked by ISIS, which, as everyone knows, ISIS is ISIS's ultimate trophy, I can promise you that the Pope would have wished and prayed that Donald Trump would have been the president because this would not have happened, Donald Trump said in a statement released by his campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the Don speaking facts, man. Again, I mean, I don't think Pope Francis would have had the gumption to call for another crusade to repel the borders. I mean, we don't have that Catholic Church anymore. We don't have the Catholic Church that's willing to call together that logistical and militaristic miracle that was the Crusades.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They do not have that level of power or influence.
Well,
we live in a different
world. You also have to
world.
remember, is like at that point, like most of the people there at that point during the Crusade were all either Italian or European. Mm-hmm. So when Europe is being, invaded and destroyed basically by the, Muslim invaders, like you're like, yeah, we have to do something. These people aren't Christian and they're going to wipe us all out. I mean, what was it? Like Constantinople was about to be, sacked at that point. And now the Catholic Church has expanded completely all over the world. So I don't think that they would ever do that because we're going to invade another country of Catholics, and they're going to have an uprising of people separating from the Catholic Church again.
Yep. So again, an honest assessment of this man and who he was. Again, I'm sure he did lots of good things. I'm not doubting that. And again, I played that video where I showed you. I agree with him blessing homosexuals. Again, I love that. Hate the sinner, hate the sin, not the sinner. But at the same time, it's the slippery slope fallacy. It's like, and again, with the Pietro being the lead forerunner again, that's very scary where the Catholic Church will be going in the next couple of years because if they again, they need to just pick the guy from Italy, pick the most conservative one, and
call it a day.
Call it a day.
Yeah. Like I said, that's one of the things I've heard. Like, I mean, I don't know how true it is because I don't know that much about Catholic law. Supposedly, like I said, this is the next pope elected is supposed to be the last pope before the end of times.
Really?
So yeah, that's what I've heard. I don't know how true that is, and like who it was. This is just internet,
internet
gossip.
sleuths. Yeah,
exactly.
But and again, get a more conservative one in there, somebody who's going to actually hold down Catholic dogma and doctrine and just keep it as it should be, instead of getting these. Again, this is what happens when you have bishops in higher ups in the Catholic Church going, we care more about the perception of the Catholic Church than we do the actual doctrine of Catholicism. It's like, again, and Pope Francis was that. It's like, atheist people who despise religion are like, I like Pope Francis. Some people might be going, that's a good thing, though. It means that could bring them in. It's like, no, these people who, like, I knew, they despise religion. They thumb their nose down at religious people. And they liked him because of he seems like an activist Catholic. Like, he's a good one because, he's super pro-LGBT. I'm just like, ugh, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. I just remember when I was listening to this conversation, again, I'm not Catholic, so at that time
it
I was
made
not,
our skin crawl.
Yes.
And we're not Catholics.
Yeah, and I felt bad for Catholicism as these people were talking, going, I really don't like Catholics, but yeah, the Pope seems pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, the Pope is the Catholic, so if the Catholic one is making everyone who was in these sinful nature being like, oh yes, sin's back, baby, woo! It's like that's not good.
Yeah. Then back to the article. For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful. Trump aggressively courted evangelical Christian leaders and voters during his run for president. Though, as NPR reported after his visit to Liberty University last month, there have been some missteps along the way. Last year, he told an Iowa evangelical gathering that he never asked God for forgiveness, a central tenet of Christian faith, and repented that Sunday on CNN, and repeated that on Sunday on CNN. He declined to cite his favorite Bible verse or even his favorite testament, and the Presbyterian Church says he attends in Manhattan, and he said he is not an active member. Well, he's a busy man.
Yeah.
No.
That's true, but I mean, that's why in the Bible it says the rich will have a hard time getting into heaven, because again, when you're rich, you feel like you can facilitate your own needs. You don't need to pray to a God. The poor and the poor in spirit, they need God. The people who are wealthy, like, I don't need God. I'm good. I got my own back covered.
Mm-hmm. Said Trump still won the endorsement of the school's president, Jerry Falwell Jr., after the appearance. For his part, Francis is not shielded away from politics since becoming pope. While simply repeating a long-held church position of the dangers of capitalism and globalism, concerns for the environment, and other social justice issues, he has repeatedly made headlines over the course of his career as pontiff and, before that, cardinal, for challenging political leaders. Yeah. So he made himself a political pope. Versus but that's the problem, is like that's one of the reasons why Martin Luther and the other church and the Orthodox Church split, was because the church became very political and active in politics.
Yeah.
I mean the whole schism between like Orthodox and Catholics was the Trinity, like you know how they interpret the Father, Son,
and the Orthodox don't interpret it as a Trinity. They interpret it as Father, Son, and then the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit can't come to the Son; it can only come from the Father.
Yes, exactly. That's the difference. Is like it's in the Catholicism, which even Lutherans still believe it. It's the Father, Son,
Trinity.
And the Holy Ghost.
Protestants all believe Trinity.
Exactly. Like I said, they can come from within each other.
I'll put it this way: all good Protestants believe in the Trinity.
Yes.
If you are a what is it? Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, that they are not Christian. That is not Christianity at all by any stretch of the mind. That is fake Christianity. But Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, like they're all like Trinity. That's what matters.
And then, the whole thing with the Orthodox is it's the Father and the Son. The Father goes through the Son, but you go through this Holy Spirit through the Father too. It does not go through the Son.
Yeah.
That's the big schism. That was the big schism problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they've kind of reconciled quite a bit since then, but there's still some Again, between all denominations, there's still some wonk, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. And Orthodox are allowed to get married. Only like their bishops aren't allowed to get
bishops
married.
are the ones who only have to be celibate. Yeah, correct. And they can't remarry if their wife dies.
If they are married, they can't remarry. Correct. Yeah. Now let's get back to it. The first Latin American pope has made immigration a top concern earlier this week. He celebrated Mass along the U.S.-Mexico border, saying immigrants crossing the border are cannon fodder, persecuted and threatened when they try to flee a spiral of violence and a hell of drugs. Why is their country like that? I mean, that's the other thing is like, if they're Catholic, at least most of the people down in the south of the border are supposed to be Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it a drug-related hellhole? Why do they have to flee to America to get away from it? Why can't they stop it on their own? That's the question we always ask as Americans. Like, why can't they solve their own problems? Why do we have to solve their problems, or why do they have to come to us to get away from their problems?
And again, it's like the Catholic Church and this Pope is encouraging weak, limp-wristed Christianity. It's like, oh, don't stand up for yourself. Don't stand up for your country. The only thing that, again, do you think God approves of the sinful nature these people are living in? Like we are this limp-wristed Christianity we're living in right now is encouraging every place to become Sodom and Gomorrah, and none of us to be good enough men to be like, what was I can't remember the guy's name that lived in Sodom and Gomorrah. Who was the guy?
Oh,
Lot.
Yeah.
Like none of us will be Lot. Like God's not going to look down on us and be like, no, don't spare any of them. They're all cowards. They won't speak out. They won't risk their lives and well-being to stand up to this corruption and be brave and bold. No, it's like I encourage you to, Pope Francis be like, Trump trying to put up walls. Bad man. Like, just let the people who want to flee from Mexico and all the corruption and crime there come to America. It's like, fix your own dang problems in your own country. And the Catholic Church should be 100% behind that. Be like, yeah, no, y'all need to stand up and be men, But no, they're just like, no. You just let America handle it. Let America take in your sick and needy.
Yep.
They are the world's America is the world's soup kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. But this is what we talk about. Is like this is why having this guy as a particular pope was kind of an issue, especially back in the day. Because I remember people saying this stuff. Why doesn't the Vatican tear down their walls? Then that was the big meme. But that's part of it. Is like it's because he is Latin American. So he's like feels sympathy with them and not as much sympathy for
again tribalism doesn't die even when you're the Pope.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like. That's why I say that it should be an Italian guy that should be the Pope.
That's the whole reason why I said, I believe that we're not Catholic is because, men are fallible. Pope is a man. The Pope is fallible.
Yeah.
I said, but Catholics don't believe that, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, all these guys, again, it's like, maybe it's just because they don't document it if the Pope actually speaks with the Lord, but, when the last revelations and stuff came to people like Paul, right? Like the last Peter and, Peter who actually interacted with Christ and Paul who had divine intervention come into his life. It's like going, I trust the people in the Bible who got divine revelation intervention from God. It's like, you're telling me that these people are holier than thou? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, that's why Martin Luther. I think Martin Luther was correct. It's like the Bible is the final authority.
Yeah,
it's like, and again, but here's the thing though. It's like, here's where I agree with Catholics. Who gets to interpret and why is there no unification? The unification's the problem.
Yes,
but the problem is unification is just communism at some point. It's just
exactly.
Like,
I said, well, that's the problem. Is like the spin-off groups, like the Calvinists who are predestination, which predestination completely goes against all the word of the Bible. It's like what's going on?
Either your name's in the book or it's not, and your faith or your grace through faith isn't enough, and your works will never be enough.
Yep.
Your name is in the book or it's not.
Correct.
Good luck.
Said, let me get back to this. Francis even floated the idea of drawing attention to immigration concerns entering the U.S. via the Mexican border when he made his first visit to the country last fall. Oh, that's it. That was the last line. So if you just waited just a couple more seconds, it would have been over.
My bad. Anyway, but that, again, rest in peace, Pope Francis. Like I said, you did a lot of good works in your life and time, but again, not speaking ill of the dead, we just had to give an honest assessment of who Pope Francis was and the state of the Catholic Church. And again, I agree with my friend who says the Catholic Church is bigger than one man. But again, hopefully they select a more morally, more morally conservative man to be in charge of the Catholic Church this time around, instead of just trying to, again, the Catholic Church is not above trying to win brownie points for public perception. No. Oh, look, we're the hip, cool new Catholic Church. We're like the cool hip youth pastor, Protestant youth pastor. Now, that's what Pope Francis was. He was the hip Protestant youth pastor.
What was that movie that Kevin Smith made?
Dogma?
Dogma, that's it. Dogma, yeah, Dogma. It's like Dogma. We're getting rid of the crucifixion Christ and replacing him with Buddy Christ.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can't pull that up real quick.
Oh my God.
But this first meme I have pulled up here, that's a nice grave there. It would be a shame if someone rose from it.
Yeah. We forgot to do a bunch of Easter memes, so I sent a bunch of Easter memes, corresponding with this Pope incident.
Mm-hmm. We'll do that one later. Said the rooster waiting for Peter to deny Jesus a third time.
Yep.
That's good stuff. Next one. Oh, that's how I'm ending it. Whoops. I don't want to show that one just yet. Speaking of which, I'll move that over here for later.
Yeah.
All right. Then let's see here. Oh, yeah. J.D. Vance visits the Pope. Pope, guess I'll die.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is pretty funny, man. Like, J.D. Vance killed the Pope.
Yeah, that'll be the next articles coming out on CNN.
Yeah, his visit to the Pope was so traumatizing to the poor Pope that he just couldn't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm. His poor little heart gave out.
Yeah, right-wing terrorist kills Pope.
Yeah, literally. Now, this one I just found fascinating, but sure, a lot of people won't like this, but it says, lightning destroys key hand of St. Peter statue in Argentina on Pope Francis's birthday.
A sign, perhaps.
Yeah, because that's supposed to be like he's holding the key to heaven. So, very suspicious. Now, granted, that's St. Francis. It's not the Pope Francis.
And again,
but,
if you believe, like, God can act in the world, and so can demons. So, I mean, evil could have been in charge of that lightning strike and done it. But, again, it's just weird. You don't make connections where they're not. But again, it's kind of like that. The whenever George Floyd's mural got blown up. It's like lightning in broad daylight destroyed the George Floyd mural. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Coincidence or
it's
divine intervention.
Gonna read the little thing right here. Oh, whoops! It says, "Go away." LifeSite multi-journalism outlets have confirmed the lightning demolished the key and blessing hand of the statue of Saint Peter in Argentina on December 17th, Pope Francis's birthday, and the day before the publication of the Vatican's document on, I'm gonna kill this, but Fiducia Supplicans endorsing homosexual blessings. So I would take that as a sign from the Lord in this case. I'm sure there will be people who will argue against that, but
yeah,
I would say that was definitely a sign from God more likely than anything else.
Hey, you're trying to be, again, it's like I said, you're trying to be the hip youth pastor Pope, not the word of God. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is crazy though. But then there's this next one, and this is a Norm Macdonald one that you sent me. So I'm going to check this out. Let me refresh it real quick. Pause. Unmute. There we go.
Last week on Larry King Live, Marlon Brando made the shocking statement that Hollywood is, quote, run by Jews. In response, outraged Jewish organizations made it snow in New York in April. Last week on Larry King Live.
Norm is the best, man. Norm was the best. Holy cow.
Oh, man. But that is really, I think, all we had for today, my friend. So unless you got anything else that you want to talk about, like regarding, maybe the Great Schism or the Protestant Reformation or anything?
I mean, not particularly that. You could do a whole deep dive. And there's tons of other people on videos on YouTube that have done way better breakdowns of the Catholic Church and the schisms and things like that. So, what?
Have to pull up Buddy Christ.
Oh, Buddy Christ, yeah.
Nope, first thing.
There you go.
There it is. That would be the new rebranding that the Catholic Church is going to try to do.
Pretty much. And again, so for all the criticisms that Protestants gets from Catholics, it's like Pope Francis was, again, I think I have really, like, he was your hip youth pastor, Pope. That's who he was. And he started the slippery slope. And again, if the Catholic Church continues on this particular path where PR is more important than doctrine, all of Christendom is in trouble. All of Christendom is in trouble. Because again, the Catholics, they hold it down the best. Again, I'm giving you your props here. Like, Catholics have the best interpretation of abortion, the best interpretation of marriage, and they have the most kids. They're doing it right. But again, this Pope has started the slippery slope fallacy, or not fallacy in this case.
Yeah.
So I think all of Christendom, hangs in the balance on this next pick.
And again, if that little thing that I read about this being supposedly the next pope being the last pope, is he the last pope because the world ends, or is he the last pope because he completely goes against the doctrine of the Catholic Church?
He destroys the Catholic Church. And I mean, that could be a thing. Again, this could be the end of Christendom as we know it. So
and it's why we show our respect to the Catholic Church, because it is the first church.
Yes, first church. And again, if it goes, it could very well be the last church too, because they're holding it down.
Yeah, they said, if the Catholic Church confirms that gay marriage is okay, no other church really has any other grounds to stand on anymore.
And again, the front runner, the one that they are looking at the most critically, is Pietro, who is super pro LGBTQ. Again, I don't know if he's done any LGBTQ marriages, but whenever Pope Francis was like, yeah, you can give the gays the blessing, it's like, he's like, oh, absolutely. I love that. I'm going to be the hipper, youth pastor Pope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, again, what are you going to do? It's a scary time. And, again, the Pope Francis, for all the good that he did some weird stuff too. And I know several Catholics who definitely agree with what I'm saying, again. So it's not me speaking ill, it's me calling it as it is.
Yep.
So again, this could be the next big schism in the Catholic Church. Is the next the next pope.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So either way, hopefully they go more conservative. That's what I'm hoping. They pick a conservative one who just cares about doctrine and doesn't care about the image of the Catholic Church to this new hip progressive world we're living in,
Mm-hmm.
So that's about all I've got for you today. This is the Twins with the Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. Rest in peace, Pope Francis, and God bless you.
See you later, everybody.
Do you remember the bunny with Joe Biden? Remember? You remember when the bunny took Joe Biden out? He's not taking Trump out. Anyway, that was a beautiful moment when the bunny saved Joe Biden.